Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn and another episode of Common Core Diva. With me, of course, is our Common Core Diva, Lynn Taylor, and she's got some important news for us today. What are we talking about today, Lynn?
We're talking about the new push to make North Carolina number one in the nation by 2030 as far as education goes, Miss Deb.
But that sounds like a good thing, Lynn. Why? What's wrong with that? I mean, I grant number one amongst some, like being the smartest kid on the short bus might not be such a great distinction, but most people are going to say that sounds awesome.
And I don't argue. That does sound awesome. But here's the thing. If you look at the way that North Carolina has been always jumping up, going, let me, especially when it comes to things like Common Core or career tech education or technology, or let's educate the whole child, or let's use that science of reading because that's worked so well. I mean, come on, when you look at this, it's kind of like if you follow sports, you know as well as I do that when it comes to rankings, they're worthless. Sure, they're going to make people feel good, but they're worthless in meaning. And why? Because it doesn't take much for number one to fall off the charts or to drop down or to have someone else become number one. And when we're dealing with something as serious as our children, why would we want to gamble with something as worthless as a ranking? And especially by 2030, what happened to tomorrow or today?
Right. Well, that's a really good point that, the problem with rankings is depending on who is determining, and especially because it's not sports, there's not a win or lose. So we're talking about, millions of individual children learning. And so as long as you can kind of jigger the rules and the evaluation criteria, you can make somebody number one for something that nobody wants to be number one for and call it something else. And we've watched them do that. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is that once again, North Carolina is the pick-me state for turning its education system into a petri dish of experimentation for somebody's political agenda or somebody's wackadoodle new invention that's going to make them a lot of money. And they want to call it, a pursuit of excellence, when in fact, they don't know that at all because most of this is completely untried and untested. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely, you are. And, people are going to go, but you have a Democratic leadership. This wouldn't happen if it's Republican. I call BS because absolutely it did. If you look at the train wreck that Catherine Truitt put into place under her Polaris or North Star program, it was almost a carbon copy of some of the states.
What did she do to early childhood education?
Exactly. It's been absolutely a false argument to go, oh, well, it fits a political agenda. No, it doesn't. It fits the fact that you want to keep taking the federal dollars. And the only way that you can do that, especially for things like education, is come up with some cockamamie plan going, we'll be number one.
But Lynn, I'm so confused. When Donald Trump came into office, he said he was getting rid of the Department of Education. And didn't that mean that the spigot was cut off of all those federal dollars that would be flowing into the states?
Oh, contrary, Miss Deb. I hate to burst your bubble, but Donald Trump lied through his teeth once again. Think about during 1.0 administration with him. He promised to get rid of the massive data collection that was in education.
And then it points to Voss. And the queen of data collection.
She also profited off of it with one of her shell companies, and we talked about that before, but oh well. Moving on.
So essentially what you're telling me is everything you hear is the opposite of what you think it is, and especially when it comes to education in North Carolina. But I want the viewers,
okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, I want the viewers, listeners, whatever, who are not in North Carolina to understand, again, this is a petri dish.
Yeah.
This is an experiment that will make its way to other places, just like California does it. We're kind of like, North Carolina is North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey. If you shoved us all together, like made one big old state, you would have essentially the California of the East Coast. Just combine all of those, and you combine all the policies, and you have something eerily similar to what's going on in California on its own. And remember, California is an enormous state, and so you'd have to pool multiple states to get to it. But that is what I'm seeing, is they're trying to like bracket the country with these big government globalist ideas that then spread inward from there. So we already see like Utah's gone off the rails, and now we're seeing West Virginia and places go off the rails.
Well, absolutely. But again, using that sports analogy, you got your end zones, and in the middle, there's the playing field. So you got California on one end zone. You've got the conglomeration of states that could equal California on the other side. So what does that mean for the middle? They're going to get smashed in, because why? It's a cookie cutter system. It has been since Common Core came around. And that was the other thing that he said he was going to get rid of, was Common Core. Now, fast forward, we made it through Biden's administration. We saw the can was kicked down the road. We saw education was still in the toilet. Nothing changed. Here comes Trump 0.20. I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. Bull. Absolute bull. Because why? If you'll remember, he's all about jobs and apprenticeships. And if you'll remember, back when he was with DeVos, what did they do? They trotted on down to Argentina to unite ed and labor, because everybody else in the world was doing it, literally. And so they come back, we get through Biden's. What did we see? We saw an increase in the relationship between labor and education. And oh, by the way, we get a former Department of Labor person as the now sitting Secretary of Education. What did you think was going to happen?
Exactly. And of course, he needed those votes from labor too. He had to get those blue collar votes. And then again, there will be people listening to us who will say, I don't understand what the problem is, ladies. Don't we want education to help our kids get a job? Don't we want it to do that? And of course, your philosophy, folks listening, might be different than ours, but no, we don't. We're talking about every child in America whose parents aren't finding a private solution. It's taxpayer funded. These children are individuals for the government to be involved in any way in deciding what they need to learn to be employable is beyond a conflict of interest. It creates a lot of very twisted incentives on the part of hiring companies and so on and so forth pick and choose, who to fund financially for candidates and things. It's just an incestuous, icky thing. I mean, I'm sorry to be so, high school kid, but it's not how we want our individual children choosing what they're going to do with those. Remember pursuit of happiness? Yeah. Remember your individual rights? This isn't how you get to that. This isn't how you educate a citizenry to defend their rights. This isn't how you educate them to be masters of their own lives. If you want to master them to be train them to be employees of someone else. So not entrepreneurs, business owners, or anything like that. If you want them to always be employees like John D. Rockefeller did, if you want them to always be laborers and always be dependent on someone else for their livelihood, so they don't have any actual skills that they can use on their own, they have to have an apparatus in which to use them, then sure, the system's great. In other words, if you want the educational matrix and you want your kid to be plugged in by the state where the state and the ruling oligarchs think they should go, then sure, fine. But Lynn and I don't think that that's what we gave birth for. We didn't have children to say, where in the matrix will you be plugged?
Right. Absolutely. And thank you for that, because that's really spot on. And, people have heard me say this over the years, and they're, well, you just don't want people to work. No, that's not the case at all. I want you to be able to do what you want to do, not what some assessment says, well, here's a slot for you. And go back and look through history where you see we had people who invented fabulous things and used their minds. They weren't slotted through some test. They weren't told, oh, this is where the state wants you or where the government wants you. They weren't told, oh, well, you need to go get educated so our state can be number one. They weren't told any of that.
That's right.
They were given a foundation of true critical thinking, of how to read, comprehend, of how to use math facts, not assumptions. And this is what we've seen happen through the Common Core system. We no longer have the math fact that 2 plus 2 is 4. Now it's, well, whatever the heck Johnny and Susie can reasonably or unreasonably come up with. Oh, we'll make it work. And then you go and you look at the modern day construction versus the old construction. Old construction is still stable. But new construction is failing miserably. And it's not just in America, it's around the world. Why? Because we're not giving our children the solid foundation when we send them through this kind of workforce draining system.
Well, and even if we did, this is very important, even if our schools did what I think most parents want, which is made sure that our children were literate, numerate, fully, cognizant of their rights so they could vote intelligently, so they could make good choices, had an appreciation for, the pursuit of individual excellence and hard work and all these things. Even if we achieve that, which I mean, we're no way we're achieving that, you would still need to learn specialized skills to be a builder, to do certain things, which was supposed to be, or at least the argument back in the 1920s, for college, because they wanted to replace the apprenticeship system. But before that, for thousands of years, the way people decided, I'm going to build a cathedral, a house, or this or that, is you had to apprentice yourself. You had to go and get work experience, usually when you were quite young. Now, I understand that in Western society, we're a little squeamish about putting kids to work at the age of 8 or 10 as an apprentice, and we want them to be literate so they can be independent thinkers. I'm all for that. But there's no reason that an 18-year-old, if that's the arbitrary age at which we've decided you have to stay in some kind of school, personally, I'd make it younger. Honestly, I'd make it closer to 16. But there's no reason that person can't go to work and go to work specifically in a field that they would like to learn, a skill and develop that skill. We're holding these kids back from skills and then claiming that in the same apparatus, we're going to decide when they're 6, 7, and 8 what slot they're going to fit into when they're 18. And while we're telling parents it's not right to put them to work at 8. So we decide what their life is going to be when they're little kids, but no, it's wrong for them to go start doing the thing.
And I understand that, and I don't argue, but what I would point out is the fact of, okay, when I went through the public school system, I no more knew what I wanted to do than the man in the moon by the time I graduated. And so I did the unthinkable. I didn't rush to go to work. I didn't rush to go to college. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Now, I ended up going to work, and then I ended up going back to school. Am I still doing the same thing that I got higher education for, or in my first job? No, but that was the beauty of how we were educated, was that we could learn and we could grow at the same time, and we could find out, hey, this isn't necessarily where I want to be. Now, I do have respect for those people who, hey, their first job, here we are 50 years later, and they're still working at it. Are they doing that because that's what they love? Or are they doing it because they're just staying for the benefits? And that's another thing that goes in with this workforce-based system, where the government's saying, okay, we want to be the nanny state. They'll figure out a way to make sure, well, if you're not being taken care of through this healthcare system or this education system, then we'll find a way through labor to take care of you, because after all, we're in control and you're not.
Exactly. Well, let's take a look at this lovely document. Let's see if I can. All right. So here we have this Achieving Educational Excellence, the 2025 to 2030 strategic plan for North Carolina public schools. Do you want to go straight to the letter, the beginning part?
I would love for folks to see the state board's vision statement. And why? Because depending on administration, that vision statement.
This mission statement right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That statement will by and large remain the same, but then you're going to see when it comes, okay, here's the mission. This is what we want to do as a state. Okay. Then you have the vision. The vision is we want to have a global collaborative society. So your child has to become part of that. What if they don't want to be collaborative? And what does collaborative translate into?
Not an individual. How about that? Not an individual. Yeah. That's all you need to know, because we don't know the answer to that question.
Exactly. It's not you being you. It is you being part of something. And this is a society. No longer does it say that you are going to go out there to be a competent contributor of
Correct.
society. It
Correct.
says, no, you're going to be part of the society. Now, like I said, that has changed over the years. And I tried my darndest to find through the different administrations how that particular statement by the state board has changed, and I couldn't do it. But I know I have been in this long enough to know what that vision statement used to say and what it says now. And people are going to think, well, you're just harping up the wrong tree. No, because if you look at it, there sits the agenda in that mission statement and in that vision statement. So if you really want to see what your state wants to do with your child, read those.
Well, let's read it. The
Sure.
mission of the North Carolina State Board of Education and the North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction is to use their constitutional authority to guard and maintain the right to a public education for every student in North Carolina. And I'm going to stop there, okay? Because that is a lie. The
Yes, ma'am.
Constitution, neither the Constitution of the United States nor the Constitution of the North Carolina guarantee a right to an education. What they do in North Carolina, the state constitution merely guarantees the right, or not even the right, sorry, guarantees that the state will provide a public option. It doesn't say anything about you as an individual have some kind of inalienable right to receive any specific kind of education, just that they're going to create a public option. Then they layered on top of that compulsory schooling law and magically called it a constitutionally protected right. But it flipping isn't. Okay, because it
That's
involves
right.
the confiscation of money from people and the provision of a service which you cannot quantify in the document. So all they said is we are duty bound to provide a public option. How they do that is left up in the air. So this right here is a twisting of words to say
Yep.
our constitutional authority to guard and maintain the right to a public education for every student in North Carolina and to support public school units in providing every student an excellent education. Define excellent, that's a moving target, that prepares them for success in the next phase of their life, something the government should have nothing to do with. They don't know what success is going to look like for every individual. They shouldn't really have a say in it. Preparing you for success was not even the original goal of
Yeah.
public education. The original goal of public education was to prepare you to be a responsible citizen or whatever, which
Yep.
traditionally meant literate.
Yep.
And so even though I can't stand Horace Mann and I can't stand all those guys who originated it, and I think the compulsory nature was terrible, and I think they were trying to socialize us to be good and docile little citizens, it was still, compared to today,
Yeah.
like 1,000,000% freer in terms of what you'd be prepared to do than it is today. Today,
Well,
they are trying to pigeonhole our kids way faster into very specific definitions of success.
yeah. And it's government defined success, but
That's right.
let's not lose that word every child, or that phrase every child, because the Every Student Succeeds Act did the same wordplay. They said every child, all education, and people are assuming that that means one type, mainly public. But when you've got a state that's brazen enough to say every child, that is a warning to you, if you're outside the public system, that this state is going to stop at nothing to make you somehow part of that public system, whether you really want it or you really don't. So
how much do you
really,
want to bet they're going to pass school choice now that the Democrats in charge? How much do you want to bet?
well, we have done so many shows on what a bunch of lies that particular
Oh yeah.
fraud
That's what I'm
is.
saying is
Oh,
they'll now use their own language
oh
to
yeah,
say that it's going to give by subsidizing these people. And, they'll start using their own way. They'll go, well, we're going to give it to the underprivileged and we're going to
yeah,
make it means tested. So they'll start the way they always do all of these things, right? Like with free lunch, whatever, they'll make it into like a Democrat version of the same thing. But that's okay because even the Republicans don't care. They just care that it ultimately leads to state control over every child. That's
yeah.
all that anyone cares about.
Because remember, this is bicameral, bipartisan you know what? It is absolutely fodder for the agenda to continue to grind down our children, not academically bless them in any way. It is continually to just grind them down so that they can accept whatever the the government says, be that local, be that state, be that federal. And you don't lose the fact that we have a governor who has just made headlines, who wants to turn North Carolina into the number one state for what? Artificial intelligence. Do you think there's a connection between number one in AI and number one in education? Of course there is, because that would rope in not only the data centers, but the data tracking that we've seen go off the charts. You want to talk about how things have skyrocketed, as far as percentage wise, the data tracking. We went from a very few data points that were needed to track our children as far as their education to well over 4,000 now. And what is included? Biometrics. Was it ever supposed to be? Oh, no, absolutely not. So data in this particular master plan is mentioned 26 times, and it is the base for why North Carolina is now coming out and saying we have to be number one in the nation.
This is what we're talking about right here. This was on September 2nd, I believe. Josh Stein announced an executive order on artificial intelligence to ensure North Carolina's leadership in AI literacy, governance, and deployment. The executive order establishes an AI Leadership Council, an AI accelerator within the North Carolina Department of IT, and AI oversight teams within each state agency. The council will be chaired by Secretary of Information Technology Tina Piccioni and Secretary of Commerce Lee Lilly. AI has the potential to transform how we work and live, carrying with it both extraordinary opportunities and real risks. Our state will be stronger if we're equipped to take on these challenges, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But he is all in on this fun stuff. These are all the people on this little thing. Yeah. So that's what Lynn is talking about, in case you were wondering.
Now, don't lose the fact, because somebody's going to hear this and they're going to think, oh, well, they're just picking on the Democrats. No. Let's go back a couple of administrations to when we had Pat McCrory, one of the most dyed-in-the-wool rhino Republicans to ever walk the face of this earth. Yep. I sat in a community college auditorium in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I heard this man speak. So I know exactly what I'm talking about, and it's on my blog, and I even did an article on it. He promised that the entire state would use the education system to create this wonderful pipeline of career-ready tech people. Now let's fast forward to what Stein just said. Do you see the connection? It's been there all along. And so regardless of whether we've had a Republican governor or we've had a Democratic governor, it's been the same pattern that we've seen at a federal level. They're not changing anything. They're not saying, okay, well, the other guy did this. Well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to fix what they did and we're going to have it better.
Exactly.
They're keeping the same agenda going. They're just putting different things on it. So if you're still convinced that R is better than D or D is better than R, you're going to go for it.
Yep. And I don't know how many times I have to say it on this channel, but there really is fundamentally no difference except when you look at social policy. Yep. Otherwise, if you were hoping that Republicans would remain fiscally conservative or even protectors of individual liberty, you were hoping in vain. That's gone. In fact, I'm not sure that party or that version of republicanism has existed since Reagan, and even under Reagan, it was like, so the Republican Party that people fantasize exists or even ever existed was a blip in history, a blip. It wasn't the norm. And, Calvin Coolidge maybe, okay. But these are the same guys who made the income tax permanent, y'all. William Howard Taft was a Republican. So I just don't understand where people are getting this, like, Republicans are the answer. We need to be a red state. We need to go the red states. No, Utah is one of the worst right now for what Lynn is talking about. Utah. Could you find a place redder than Utah? Texas. Texas is basically handing over the keys to the kingdom to the far left. They have all kinds of problems in Texas education right now.
And you want to know why? It's because in front of the camera, there's a war, a red versus blue. But behind the scenes, it's let's see what we can do together. Let's unite. And if you think I'm making it up, I dare you. Go look on my blog. Go look on Deb's Substack. Go look on John Klysick's work. Go look at Charlotte Iserby. Go look at, I could name a bunch of others where we have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that when it comes to education, both sides are dead wrong.
Correct. And I think somebody shared it today. I thought it was so interesting, but it was about how the Prussian system was designed intentionally so that you would never be able to envision anything else. Like that was kind of the point of it, that you would not even be able to imagine what life would be like. I think I have the quote here. It's what said, the beauty of the Prussian compulsory schooling system that Horace Mann forced on Americans is that victims can't imagine any alternative. And everyone who went through it hated it. So everyone who went through it, like you maybe find half a dozen people your whole life who go, I loved school. But most people are like, oh God, and that they still send their kids and they still can't envision. They're like, well, what do you propose instead? Like, we're crazy people. They admit that they hated it mostly, or they couldn't see the point, or they couldn't wait for it to end. And then they're like, there's no alternative.
Oh, BS. But here's the thing. Look at your property tax that North Carolina demands that you pay. Yep. The lion's share goes where? To education. It absolutely does. Now, I did not give page numbers this time. Normally I do, but I went by subject this time because I want people to get this and do their due diligence and look at this, because I know people outside of North Carolina are going to be interested in, well, gosh, if they're doing it, how long before we're doing it? Because, in education,
not long.
It's not Vegas. It is absolutely not Vegas. It won't stay in one place. It will go everywhere else because it's too connected with the funding streams. Why do you think the assessments have to marry with the states who surround us? It's that the assessments and everything, it's like the crab pot. You can't get anybody to come out of it. They have to stay down in it.
So tell me where to go and I will go there.
All right, so I did it by subject matter. Let's see here. So tied with data, you'll find science. It's mentioned 4 times. Most of it deals with the science of reading. Can we please go back to Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mark Johnson, a Republican, and he championed the science of reading.
And explain to people what you mean by the science of reading so they understand.
Okay, it's supposed to be a program that uses a science-based approach on Johnny and Susie being able to read by sight, not by phonics, but by sight. And it failed miserably. The state legislature even said, we don't need to keep doing this if it's not working, but yet somehow, some way, it kept being funded. So now it is assumed that every North Carolina child who goes through this science of reading program will be able to be a masterful reader. It totally ditched age-appropriate, phonic-based letter recognition, but yet it's supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
You might have heard of it as whole word or 3Q.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's absolutely amazing to me that we're not the only state that uses this cockamamie way to teach a child to read. It's been a train wreck. But we're propping it up like we have on rose-colored glasses going, it's all good, it's all good, it's going to be fine, we're going to be number one, and yes. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, let's
I
move on.
stopped on this, Lynn. I stopped on
Sure.
this because I think it's really important. First of all, every time I see little circles with fancy colors, that my little spidey senses get lit up because I start thinking about the SDG goals and
Right.
sustainability. And they always got to have pillars, and they always have the goals and all these. And you got to stop and read these. Look at this. Prepare each student for their next phase in life. And how do you know what that is?
Yep.
The parents don't know. The kids don't know. I promise you, the state doesn't know. So this idea that you're going to prepare somebody for a thing you can't know what it is, next phase, you don't know what the next phase is at all.
You don't even know if there
That's
will
pretty
be a
general.
next. You don't even know if there'll be a next phase, because God forbid something happens to that child to where they're physically not here anymore.
No, it's just an utterly nonsense statement, because we don't even as parents expect schools to prepare our children for adulthood.
That's our job. That's our job.
You're supposed to prepare them simply to be functional in the basic skills of living life on Earth in Western civilization, which means literacy and numeracy and enough understanding of history and science and other things that you are not walking around being easily fooled by snake oil salesmen and, whoever wants to tell you that, oh, drink this and it'll cure cancer. I mean, you should have enough of a knowledge of science to know that's not true. Revere public school educators. Whoa, hold the phone. School is not church. We don't revere any public servant ever. I don't care. Not even firefighters. And firefighters run into burning buildings. Yep. Okay. Their chance of getting killed trying to rescue people in a burning building or put out a fire is way higher than the average. How about linemen? We don't even revere linemen, and their chance of dying is higher than most people's. Revere public school educators in a pig's eye. In a pig's eye. Enhance parent, caregiver, and community support. Here's the community schools coming down the pipe. They're already in California. They're coming here too.
Durham had one of the very first ones, Deb.
School education is supposed to provide support for all of this. Are the parents now children too? Yep. Are we all going to be infantilized? Ensure healthy, safe, and secure learning environments. Define healthy. Have you seen what they feed them in the school cafeteria? Exactly. It is absolute garbage from their cronies that sell it. Safe. Define safe. They're gun-free zones. They allow bullying to go unchecked. They have DEI that puts in restorative justice, so nobody gets punished. They don't suspend people. They're even kicking out the resource officers because cops are scary and bad. So how are you keeping places safe? And then learning environment, learning what? That I'm going to be the student, am going to be under surveillance all the time, except the bad guys will be able to walk around and torment me and no one's going to do anything about it. Optimize operational excellence. That just means spend as little money as you can on the kids, because we need it to all go to the administrators and the big guys in the big fancy offices. Because, we want the teachers sending 17 emails home in the first week of school begging for their Amazon wish list to be funded by the parents who've been bled dry by the taxation already. Lead transformative change. Oh, that's just socialism. Okay. Celebrate the excellence in public education. We're doing an awful lot of patting ourselves on the back, considering our shitty results. Celebrate, revere.
Yeah, it's word salad to appetize those people who are so rabid for
our failure. Come on. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, what are we celebrating? And then galvanized champions. Who are they? Was this like Goliath?
Who wrote this?
To fully invest in, that just means get more money and support education. That's just get more money. So pillar 8 is get more money. Why they use a Liberty torch, I do not know. They should be using dollars, stacks and stacks of dollars. Galvanize champions to fully invest. That just means put a lot of pressure on and bully the shit out of the parents to get people to tax them more. But every single one of these can be dissected into what it actually means, which is nothing that you as a parent or taxpayer in this or any other state should ever want. And to call it achieving educational excellence when there's not a single, there's no mention of academics.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
This is touchy-feely garbage and a bunch of money. I
Well,
don't see
sure it
anything
is.
to do
Sure
with
it
that.
is. Well, we're
Academics.
gonna okay, but let's think about it. We're gonna take a turd and we're gonna wrap it in lovely words and we're gonna present it to you as this newfangled invention that, if you smoke it, it's gonna make your state number one. Uh, Try that and see how
Launch
well that works.
life ready graduates. You know what makes you life ready? Reading. Like if you can read and do basic math, you're ready for most of the things you need to do in life. And you know what else makes you life ready? Actually, having hope and not being so cynical that you have no trust in anybody in a position of authority, no trust in your parents, no trust in your public servants, no trust in anybody, because they've allowed you to be brutalized for 13 years by bullies, or they've allowed you to be the brutalizer.
Yeah,
And that's what we have
exactly.
right now. Our schools have more in common with prisons
Oh
than
yeah.
they do with any kind of learning institution. And the idea that they're going to, in the next 5 years, magically launch life ready graduates, we're graduating people who can't read. We have
Yeah.
grade inflation off the
We've been
charts.
we have been graduating hundreds of people for the past at least well, how old is Common Core? It's what, over 10
30.
years.
Oh, no, sorry. Common Core is only
Yeah, it's over 10 years. I know that, but the point of it is because Catherine Truitt's Polaris or North Star program or whatever the heck she called it, it was some of this same garbage. It just didn't sound quite as confrontational as this does. I revere public educators. That's why I want to know who wrote this. You had
And
to
then you got
have.
to look at the fine print. Launch life ready graduates. Create and award durable skills endorsements. Oh, here comes the social credit, little digital wallet, little digital designators of what your skills
That's
endorsements.
also going, you know what else that's going to do? That's going to increase the public-private partnerships between the businesses and the schools.
Well, that's
And
what
if
Jake and
you,
I are going to talk about tonight. Yes.
yeah, and that's the whole thing is that public-private partnerships, first of all, are fascist. Public-private partnerships have no business in education. And if you look at the historical makeup of America, the only reason that you had in the past businesses come to be associated with education was because people in the community wanted to build a school. And the businesses would say, well, hey, we'll help. We'll pitch in this lumber or we'll pitch in this brick and mortar or whatever. That was where the partnership was supposed to end. So now we've seen it. But the reason we've seen it shift is because the business roundtable, back when Common Core was rolled out, sat down with global corporations, the majority of which are headquartered in America, and said, yes, let's align education to business and we'll support it, because that way we'll have a person who, when they come out of high school, they'll be ready to be employed. And
Well, Lord knows
if
that's
you
the
look.
most important thing in the world is,
Oh, yeah. But if you look at the departments here in North Carolina, especially commerce, and let's see, yeah, there's commerce, there's a business council on education. This happens in every state. If you look at your Department of Commerce, there will be some sort of board, council, commission, study, or all of the above done on how they can intersect education with corporations so that, oh, you'll be life ready and work ready in the same person.
it kind of makes me sick a little bit. It's really upsetting me. Like I'm reading this and just,
Well, I'm glad to know that you and Jake are going to talk about that. I would love for us to have a round table because
yeah.
he brings so much, and I know that he and I have done shows before, and I know that he and I both have Charlotte Iserbeet in common. So there is so much that the three of us could talk about.
Yeah.
And
We're going to go over his investigative report into the PayPal mafia
awesome,
and school
awesome,
choice. So we're going to get into that.
awesome. I'm so happy that you're going to be able
Yeah,
to
because that
expose that.
that needs to
Yeah,
happen.
it really does. What
But
else
this
do
is
you want
crazy,
to?
Lynn. Tell me where to go next. I'm sorry. I'm getting stuck on all this
No,
language
no,
because
no, no.
this
That's
is
fine.
crazy.
That's fine. I'm going to run down the list because I want folks to, okay, if we don't bring it up, I want you to be looking for it. All right. We said data was mentioned 26 times. That's why NC feels that they want to be number one in the nation. Science, we said, was 4. Careers mentioned 26 times, and every instance is about slotting a child for a job. Behavior, including positive behavioral intervention systems, 5 times. Mental, as in mental health, 9 times. Technology is 6 times. Choice, in relation to school choice, 7 times that's embedded. The whole child is mentioned only twice, but it connects directly to your community, as in the community is raising your child. Assessments we see 5 times. Now, as we have both seen, this is not the first time you and I have sat down and talked about this from a viewpoint of using North Carolina as an example of what we shouldn't be doing, but yet here we are again.
That's right. Here we are again. Oh, God.
Because it doesn't matter what administration comes down the blasted pike or sits in Raleigh in the hot seat, we're going to get a different brand of BS every stinking time. And then we're going to be told, oh, well, you need to support this because after all, if you don't, you're not a good representation of North Carolina and we can't be number one.
And who are we? Who's we? I mean, we live in a state, but we're not some tribe.
I understand that. You and I understand that, but I don't think that's the way that we're seen. If you want to talk about revering North Carolinians, let's try that on the citizens who pay these bloody taxes and who are being told, oh, yes, this is what you need to do with your child, or being told, oh, this is who you need to revere. No, absolutely not. If you want to have the kind of North Carolina be number one at something, then let's be number one in freedom. Let's be number one in saying, screw the system, take back your federal funding. I don't want it. Let me have my child. No, don't even ask them.
But
don't
what I want to know is, Lynn, who's the audience of this document? In other words, how did this document get published? Is it just like out there on the governor, the Department of Education's website for the state? Like, what was they have a strategic.
This is going to be trotted out across the state in community meetings, and they'll give you the locations and the dates of where wait a minute, I'm sorry. They'll give you the locations of where these regional meetings will be, but they don't give you the date or the time. So
But
how
why
am I
even write
supposed
it? Like, I mean, the thing that kills me, and that's why I want to kind of spend, if it's all right with you, I want to spend like a minute or two per pillar.
Sure.
So we talked about the one we already kind of went to pillar 1, where it says prepare each student for the next phase in life, which to me is just kind of ludicrous because you don't know what that means. But they have things like increase the number of North Carolina public schools recognized as national schools of character. How does that affect the individual? That's a designation that the school can get if you just rejigger the language enough. That doesn't show anything about student performance or student achievement. Then, they have like increase the average ACT composite score to 20. I mean, that's pretty mediocre. I hate to tell you guys this. A score of 20 is like below passing.
So we're going to aim for the middle and tell you it's the top.
Yeah, we're like increase the graduation rate when we already know that graduation rate is a bullshit statistic because all you got to do is inflate grades and give people, credit recapture and they graduate even though they can't read and they can't do anything and they've been suspended 17 times. So all they're doing is moving the deck chairs around the Titanic, changing the numbers, and they're not telling you how they're going to fundamentally change holding teachers accountable, holding students accountable, holding administrators accountable for actual individual achievement as measured raw, right versus wrong. Okay. Can you read? Can you not read? This is a book with a Lexile level of X. You know, it has this many words on a page of this degree of difficulty. Can you read it by the end of 5th grade or can you not? Period. And if you can't, do you have a special, reason you can't, dyslexia, et cetera? Like, hey, you go in a separate category. We don't lump all these kids together and then have the special needs kids bring down everybody in terms of like, we're just going to lump them all together, not disaggregate anything. And then say, oh, we have the highest performing special needs kids in the country. And like, yeah, because you're letting them benefit from the curve of the kids performing well. And then you turn around and you kind of cover up how everybody else is not doing well by raising the grades, inflating the grades. It's crazy.
It's grading. Yeah.
And so there's that. Then we'll go to pillar 2, Revere public school officials. This literally brings the bile up in my throat. These are the people who wanted to stay closed during COVID. They didn't want to come into work. These are the people who were moonlighting during COVID, teaching online to kids in China. And how do I know? Because my full-time job at the time was being an online ESL teacher to kids in China. And suddenly I lost my job because the market was flooded with public school teachers with time on their hands. And the Chinese company knew they could pay us less because we got paid for how many classes we individually taught. So they'd do better to pay more people the lower rate than to have lots of full-time workers. So suddenly all these people were getting a little extra gravy while still making their full salary to teach maybe a couple hours a day tops from home in their pajamas, or better yet, from a Caribbean island that they had somehow managed to get to. So this makes me sick to my stomach. For every one teacher who's great and heroic and whatever, there's got to be 10 who are absolute parasites. And
well, you need to also understand that during all this, there were ways where they said, oh, let's reinvent the wheel. Let's come up with micro schools or pod schools. Yep. Those were invented to take more public funding and throw at them. And people in the homeschooling community were going, oh, great, there's something I can do. And I'm like, no, I wrote an article, did a show on it. No, this is why you don't go to micro schools or pod schools. Not right now, not unless you, the homeschooling family and community, has come up with it.
Yep.
But you start using this, they're expecting you to take public funding, which makes you under public control. That's for education.
And this is this is like, increased North Carolina principal pay. The principals 10 years ago were making higher than the highest average private sector. The principal of my daughter's middle school was making $80,000 a year plus full benefits, and he was hardly ever there.
Okay, hang on. Hang on. Let me bring up a couple of points here.
Disgusting.
Winston-Salem School District, Forsyth County. They are going through some of the most gut-wrenching cuts. Closing schools, reducing the amount of principals or assistant principals or certain key positions. Now, in these pillars, it says we're going to build more schools. Well, that's going to drive up the tax rate. And the justification for it, at least here where I live in Iredell County, is that we have such an influx of new people coming in that we have to have more schools. Well, go look at the price tag for one of those schools. And you know what? One of them is an elementary school that I swear, Bob, if you look at the rendering of it, there's not one playground visible. That is criminal. Then you have the reduction of staff. What are we doing? We're settling up for more regionalism. And why? Because North Carolina, like other states, participates in a program that is definitely tied to the Sustainable Development Goals. You were talking about that, but it's creating zones of the haves and the have-nots. Now, they'll put a nice name on it. Some states will use opportunity zones. North Carolina loves to use prosperity zones. And
Breaking news, Lynn.
Yes, ma'am.
Vi Lyles won the primary.
Okay.
The same mayor of Charlotte.
Okay. I got you now.
The same mayor of Charlotte responsible for that murder on the light rail just won her primary yesterday.
Okay, then. Well,
I can't even with this. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's fine.
I'm mesmerized by the pay here. So we've got for starting pay for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
The 2023-2024 amount was $50,000. Okay. The pay that they want to be the average teacher pay in North Carolina, it currently is $67,641. And they think that's low. They think that's low pay to work essentially 9 months of the year. They're done work in the middle of the afternoon. Most of them, they go, oh no, I have so much work to do. Cut me some slack. Everything is on a flipping Chromebook. You don't write lesson plans. You don't have to read books. You assign readings to the kids. You don't read a goddamn thing. Every lesson plan is either prepared for you or you get it on Teachers Pay Teachers or whatever. Don't even start with me. The hardest thing you have to do is stay alive in class because they don't let you discipline. And if you want high pay for that, I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for you because you should be walking out to demand discipline. Don't just ask for more pay, demand discipline, because they're good kids sitting in your class getting brutalized who can't learn jack shit because instead of saying, I'm not going to work anymore and none of us are going to work anymore until you start suspending the kids who are beating people up and throwing chairs at us, instead, I want more money. There's no amount of money, Lynn. People have said to me, why don't you go teach in North Carolina public schools? I'm like, because there literally isn't an amount of money that they could pay me to tolerate the loss of credibility to myself, my loss of integrity, to go into an environment where I know the students can't learn and I know I'm not allowed to teach them appropriately and I'm not allowed to discipline the students. You can pay me $1 million. I'm not going to do it. Why would I do a job that I cannot do well? So every person that is going into those classrooms knowing they can't do it properly and taking the paycheck anyway does not get my sympathy. They just don't.
Well, it's amazing because how much further back do we need to go and look to see that no amount of money thrown at education, be it administration, teacher, or student, has improved anything?
No, it has not.
Historical data proves you can throw all the money in the world at it. It's still not going to solve the problem because we're not looking at the root. We're not looking at the fact that there's more to this. We just think that, oh, well, okay, we'll have more money. Where the fudge do you think they're going to get it? Off the taxpayers.
And then this idea of, enhanced parent caregiver.
That's not their business.
Not the role of the state. It is not my job. I chose to have children. I chose to be a decent parent and pay attention to them and whatever, in spite of having to work and in spite of other things, just like you did. And, there are plenty of single parents. There are plenty of people out there who are doing their damnedest with it. Is not the government's job. It is not the taxpayers who are making the sacrifices and are arranging their lives around their children. It is not our job to come in and hold the hands of the people who are phoning it in. I mean, when I think of the percentage of North Carolinians on Medicaid alone, okay, able-bodied people getting Medicaid, that just tells the tale. It tells the tale of people are just phoning it the flip in. And then we're supposed to pay more. This is all a recipe for pay more. My property taxes went up $1,000 in the last year, and they want me to pay more.
Yep.
To take care of other people's kids and their parents?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm getting indignant, Lynn. People are going to be watching this going, oh, the stingy, selfish, horrible, nasty bitch. I don't care. I literally don't care anymore.
It's doing is it's grooming a nanny state. Now, you were talking about why was this document published? It's going to be trotted out during these regional meetings in different locations that they won't tell you the location or the date. They'll just say, oh, yeah, we're going to go here. We're going to go there. And they're going to be taking this document and they're going to be using it under the guise of Mo wants to know. And they're going to have you come and listen to the propaganda and be all gung-ho and have your rose-colored glasses on and go, yes, let's do it. Let's be number one. So why did I start with a sports analogy? Because that's precisely what this is. It is one of the biggest pieces of propaganda that we've had in a long time. I would love to see another state's new educational plan so that we could sit down and look, okay, how is North Carolina's better? How is it more number one? Because I could just about bet you dollars to donuts it won't be. It's going to either be the same or it's going to be maybe a little better, but it might be a little worse. But the point of it is, why does North Carolina think it needs to be the be all end all?
It doesn't.
This is bread and circus for the masses. That is all this is.
Yep, I think that you're right. I think that's exactly what it is.
And I hate that we are having to go down these roads for the umpteenth time. But Deb, I'm really hoping that once and for all, the audience gets it, that they absolutely understand it's not the state's business, it's not the Fed's business, it's not even the local government's business. It is your job, mom and dad, or whatever the parental
and here we got, and now they're responsible for our health too, our health and our safety.
Of course, that's woven in here. But again, we've seen this happen with North Carolina. They wanted to be among the first to do the telehealth, to connect rural people to their community school, because after all, Farmer John might be on his tractor and his son or daughter is in school, needs medical attention. They can't get to Farmer John or Farmer John's wife. So they take it upon themselves to treat and medicate the child. Oh, what could possibly go right with that?
Nope. It used to be.
But
you just put in what your doctor's number was, and then whatever you get, you give,
you know what my healthcare system was in the school I went to, or the school system I went to? It was the teacher said something to the principal's office. The secretary picks up the phone and she calls home, and mom or dad comes and gets you. That was your healthcare system, because my county was too poor to have a school nurse. But again, my county was also smart enough, even though they were poor as far as economics, they were smart enough to know the buck stopped at mom and dad.
That's right. That's right. And this is all just, operations. They just want to spend more money writing emails we never read and making websites we never look at, because, it shouldn't be this complicated.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to challenge everybody who lives in North Carolina, when the deity deigns to offer up the schedule so we can go and revere, let's show up and let's show civil discourse. Let's show that we have intelligent opposition. Now, I'm not talking about go out there and be a potty mouth and say, get yourself arrested. No, I'm saying show up with some facts, show up with some evidence, show up with why this is a really bad idea. But most of all, show up why you don't want to see your taxes continue to skyrocket, because pretty soon you won't even be able to take care of yourself, much less this system.
Well, right. Because if they just keep taking the money from us to pay for this, pretty soon we're all going to need this, because we won't be able to afford to get things any other way. And they'll just effectively become the single payer, single provider of all the things. Our kids will be fed at school. They get, and what happens to the old people who don't, have children and don't have kids that need to go to school? What are we doing? We're just paying taxes off our Social Security to pay for this shit.
No, we'll find a way to be done with them, because Mark Tucker perfected that system over in Estonia, and it has been brought back to America through Maryland, and now is kind of the blueprint for the rest of the states, that you'll be an effective part of the system. And when you're not, we'll take care of you. But they never really tell you how they'll take care of you. So I'm going to let your imagination go with that.
We'll take care of you.
I will. But I really think that we need to start showing up in mass at these different meetings and going, here's what the Constitution does say. Here's what it means when it comes to taxation. And if this is how you want to make our state number one, I don't want to be here.
No, they're making me want to leave the state so bad. There's so many ways. Charlotte is already a complete cesspool of corruption and trash everywhere. And then this one, engage partners on education. We know what that means. That's the public-private partnership. Share public education messaging and stories. Propaganda. So Pillar 7 is basically, pro public education propaganda paid for with your tax dollars. So if you were hoping
you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, doesn't matter. Go team.
Build community voices, promote engagement initiatives, and move champions in action. This is just all pure pro public school activism. That's all it is.
It's cheerleading.
That's all it is. That's all this is.
That's why I said sports. Sports is the greatest analogy for this entire mess, because you might as well call it the BS Bowl. And maybe that's what you can name the show. I don't know. North Carolina's the BS Bowl. I don't know. Anyway. Well, Deb, that's all I have today.
Wow.
It's enough. It's enough.
It's enough. I guess the lesson here, folks, is go to your own state's Department of Public Instruction or State Board of Education or whatever they call it in your state, and find your 2025 playbook, whatever, because I'm sure every state has one, and give it a look. And I would bet, if I were a betting woman, I would bet that yours is probably looking eerily similar to this. I bet you'll see some crossover. They don't make this stuff up. The governors all convene and talk about this stuff.
Well, they're part of the National Governors Association that still supports the Common Core state standards.
That's right. It's making me actually want to look. So I'm kind of curious if I go.
If you do have someone from another state who responds, we need to find out. Okay, what did you find out?
Yeah.
Talk to us. Share with us. I mean, come on, we're supposed to be all in this together. Why not?
I think my keyboard may be dead.
Oh no.
I think it might be dead because I was like trying to type it in. I was trying to type in Virginia. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's not working. I think my keyboard's dead. So, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out.
It's all those data people looking at you, Deb.
They might be. Oh, no, there we go. Virginia. I'm going to check it out. Virginia Department of Education, right? Let's see if they got
VDOE. Yep.
Yeah, let's see what the VDOE. Then we've got news. Virginia announces $510,000 in grants. Trying to think where we would look.
Oh, and don't forget, grants are deferred loans that you're not going to pay them, but your children will.
Right. The 2025 Family Engagement Summit, School Performance and Support Framework. I bet that's pretty close to it, right? They've got a school data toolkit. I'm not seeing like what their 2025, let's see if I type in 2025. So this is how it's done, folks. You have to dig a little bit.
Yep. Try achieving excellence. Maybe that's it.
Let's see. Yeah, they have all these buzz terms. Creating Excellence Award Program in 2025. Virginia Board of Education. Okay, so this was, all right, that was just their Excellence Awards. So that won't really work. Let's see. I'll put in plan. State plan narrative. Oh, wait. It's protected. VCCS local plan. So here's the thing. This is so far protected. They haven't published that one. So look at the 2024 one. And the 2024 one, which you would think I should be able to open this up right now. But they do have the 2024 one. Well, let's see. It says, yep, strengthening. Guess what it's called? Guess what it's called?
What?
Strengthening career and technical education for the 21st century.
I'm so not surprised. I mean, look who's the governor.
For the 21st century. Everything's for the 21st century.
Or the jobs that don't exist yet. How can you? It is impossible. You cannot do that. What you can do, though, is you can equip a student to be able to handle what is the unknown, and that is through a good foundation of literacy, of numeracy, of logic. But no, we can't do that. That's too radical, Deb.
Yeah, well, that's who we are, Lynn. We're radicals.
We're radicals. We're going to shake up the system. Oh no.
We're free radicals, like those things that destroy your skin. I'm kidding.
That's
all
okay.
right.
That's okay.
I think we got the message out. Hopefully people will take a look in their own state as to what's going on. But even if
Yeah,
you
let
can't
us know.
find the one, just remember that the one that is in use in North Carolina is probably a blueprint for things to come where you are as well.
And you know what? Here's an idea, Deb. If they couldn't find it, let's say it hasn't been published yet, listen when it does come out and then go back and listen to what we've said. And then you're going to go, oh, crap. I knew I'd heard it before.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks
You're so
everybody for
welcome.
listening and watching. Please share this out with other people you know, again, whether they live in North Carolina or not. And the last thing I'll say is if it does seem like, especially if you're new to the channel, if it seems like we're nitpicking on word choice or like, I don't see why this is so wrong. What's the problem? I genuinely encourage you to take a big step back and ask yourself, how was it that let's say you're over 40. Okay. I mean, if you're under 40, you probably won't relate to this, but how in the world were you ready for the next phase of your life without all of that stuff? And you can say, well, we live in more complicated times. No, we really don't. Everything is relative when it comes to the times we live in. We also have means of dealing with the complications now that we didn't have when you and I were coming up. So, we didn't have the internet to look things up at a moment's notice. We had to
We had the World Book Encyclopedia.
Yeah, we had much slower, more cumbersome ways of figuring things out. So one could make the argument that things are actually a little easier now, not harder. So why we're overcomplicating it, I don't know.
Easier doesn't make it better.
No, it doesn't. But what I'm saying is that the argument that, well, things are going to be more complicated because times are more complicated. I mean, that's just not true. First of all, it's just not true. And second of all, it shouldn't be any more complicated. What the kids need to learn hasn't changed. Human beings haven't changed. We really haven't. The technologies we've invented have changed, but we haven't changed in terms of how our brains work, how we learn, how we adapt to new information, how we acquire skills. These things haven't changed. We haven't evolved at the same speed as the CPU. And yet people act like we have. They act like the technology we've invented can be mirrored in our own brains and our own bodies in terms of the way we've evolved. And that's just false. So we haven't changed that much and we don't need all of this junk. What I can say has evolved and changed rapidly is our government's ability to persuade us that we do need all of these things. They've gotten very good at it, and they've gotten good at doing it so quickly and so sneakily that you look at people like Lynn and me and think we're, like nitpicky weirdos because it all sounds good to you. That's word salad. It all sounds like something that should be happening, and that's what they want you to think. But if you really stop and think about all of that, where did you see anything in there about making sure kids could read?
Nope.
Not a thing. So that's a lot of words to essentially say, we're going to spend more money. We're going to ask for more money. We're going to pay more money to our own employees who are automatically going to be loyal to us because their livelihood depends on us. And we're going to set about making you think you are more dependent on us than on yourself. That's what that whole document says. In a nutshell. Okay. Well, Lynn, thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
We'll be back, I'm sure, at some point in the future with another episode of Common Core Diva. So until then, please check out commoncorediva.com and also Lynn at Common Core Diva. She's at Common Core Diva on X. Okay. Take it easy, everyone.